The following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Crossed Flags, a racing podcast. It's your midweek fix for racing news and information. Brought to you by the Championship Racing Network. Now let's head trackside to join your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson.
Welcome into a July 4th week edition of Crossed Flags. A little bit earlier than normal because the man in the other picture right over there is about to be a traveling man. You're about to hit the friendly skies, I believe it is, to go to the Caribbean somewhere?
That is correct.
All right. So since you won't be here really or available to be able to do it, we went ahead and did it early. And also, in case you missed the big show or in case you forgot it at the very end, this actually will be the last time you will see or hear from him for the better part of a month, maybe?
It's going to be right 3 weeks to a month.
Okay.
At least.
Yeah.
At least 3 weeks to a month.
Yep. Got a little bit of surgery going on for this area, so keep him in your thoughts and your prayers if that's the kind of person that you are, so that everything goes well, because when he gets back, that's what he's going to be dealing with. What are we dealing with? Well, let's go ahead and let you know. We're going to talk Toyota, and, well, we're going to do something we don't do a whole lot. We're going to maybe speculate a little bit because they're leaving one, and they've got some interesting little connections to not just one, but two other different motorsports series. We're also going to talk about the future of the Austrian Grand Prix. 24 races, and according to the Concord agreement between the FIA, F1, and the drivers and the teams, that's the most they can have. And there's a whole lot of races that are interested and a whole lot of countries that are interested in coming on board. What's the future of the Austrian Grand Prix? We'll let you know that. But let's kick off with talking about, well, week number 2 of the challenge bracket from NASCAR. So we get done with Atlanta, and of all the weekends for Atlanta Motor Speedway, or Echo Park Speedway in Atlanta, to act like the super speedway that it has the rules of, woof, this was it. And pretty much all, it seems like, of the major seeds have been taken out, and that includes the 1 and 2 seeds of Denny Hamlin and Chase Briscoe. What the heck happened at Atlanta over the weekend? It was Demolition Derby over there.
I think that might be the understatement of that, because by last count that I overheard on the broadcast, 37 of the 40 cars were involved in some type of incident.
Think about that. So they were at their limit of 40 cars, and only 3 come out of it without having been involved in a wreck.
Some sort of an incident, yeah. Yeah, I had a wedding to attend Saturday afternoon, and when I got home and turned the television on and looked at the broadcast, and I saw Riley Earps was leading, I went, whoa, wait a minute. What's going on here?
Yeah, that's a typical Daytona Talladega move right there. You don't see that at hardly any other track. No disrespect to Riley Earps, but let's face it, nothing in his performance so far this year would have led us to believe that he would have been leading at any point at Echo Park Speedway on Saturday night.
Correct.
And apparently things happened early and then happened often throughout the course of the race. And like I said, again, if you have filled out a bracket, I'm personally quite thankful that I didn't, because
I did not.
I would be pretty much out just like everybody else, I'm sure. Because a lot of these, especially that Ty Dillon-Denny Hamlin matchup, I'm sorry, I would not have picked that.
Well, the part that really kind of surprised me a little bit is not only Ty Dillon, but both calling cars were consistently top 15 the entire night.
Yeah, and we haven't really seen that this year.
Yeah, and you really haven't. I mean, and they held their own, but a little bit too much pushing and shoving basically busted everybody's. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's that wreck was basically the 16 taking out the 1 and the 15 taking out the 2 in the same day. And if you're talking NCAA tournament.
Sure. Yeah. Well, but here's the thing. You and I kind of called the 2 seed having a pretty good chance of going down, because Noah Gragson and Chase Briscoe are 2 fairly well-matched drivers, former teammates of Stewart-Haas Racing, now obviously in 2 different places. but both of them driving really good cars that are set up for a track like an Atlanta, a Daytona, a Talladega. Because Joe Gibbs Racing does very well there at any of those three kinds of tracks, and Front Row Motorsports knows how to do super speedway rules kind of cars. So
they do, because Zane Smith had a very, very admirable showing at Atlanta Saturday. He held his own quite well.
So that one we could kind of, I'm not going to say predict, but we could kind of call. We could kind of see that one coming. It's not as big a surprise.
I'm pretty sure I said don't rule it out.
Sure. And I agreed with you on that. I still thought that Chase Briscoe probably would have, all things being equal, but then again, not everything was equal on Saturday night in Atlanta. So what this does, if you look around and look over, I believe in the bottom right quadrant, what you're going to find is a gentleman who now this lays out very, very nicely for. A gentleman by the name of A.J. Allmendinger.
AJ's in good shape.
AJ is able to get out of Echo Park Speedway in Atlanta, advancing on to the next round. This next round, we go to Chicago. And then shortly after that, we've got Sonoma. And of all of the drivers that are left in this bracket alive, that lays out really almost perfectly for him. And that means basically all he's got to do is survive a couple of races.
Looking at how all the next round, the ones advancing out of the next round, I said don't look past Stenhouse at Atlanta on a super speedway style track.
That's also true. Yeah.
I said I did say that. I didn't say that Ty Dillon would beat Denny Hamlin. I didn't expect that one.
No, I don't think anybody did.
I said it was a high chance of Gregson upsetting Briscoe. That happened.
Mm-hmm.
I said it'd be a high chance of Hocevar out beating Blaney. That did happen.
Yeah.
If you looking at all the brackets, how the brackets lay out, I'm on the same page as the bottom right hand bottom right hand bracket, right hand corner of the bracket, which I don't know. Heck, you could probably call that region call it the Welcome North Carolina region for all I care. That bottom right hand corner right there.
There you go.
That may be a knockdown drag out comes Sonoma, because I don't see where being as good as he's advanced and gotten better on road courses over the years, Chris Buescher should advance soundly past Zane Smith.
Should. Yeah, I agree. Should. We've seen stranger things.
As well as he's done on road courses since he's gotten in Cup versus who he's lining up against,
mm-hmm.
that Allmendinger Gibbs head-to-head round is the head-to-head round of this Chicago race.
Yeah, it does seem that the 54 car has woken up, and we've talked about in the past couple of years how even though he's young, Ty Gibbs has shown an aptitude for road course racing. So yeah, this right here, those two matchups right there might be the two biggest ones to watch here through Chicago and Sonoma, and then it's just a matter of survival.
Yeah, I mean the match of Dillon and Keselowski. I've got to say flip a quarter on that one.
Yeah, because neither one of them are slouches when it comes to road course racing.
Yeah, they're not slouches, yes, but they're not spectacular either.
No. The one thing that might get me on that is, and it's strange that I'm going to say this because I like Brad Keselowski and I like what I'm seeing out of RFK Racing here lately. I mean, you think about it, the last couple of races, they've either been, they've had all three cars within the top 15, if not top 10.
They have.
And that's an impressive turnaround from what we were seeing earlier this year, where Brad Keselowski was all but a ghost. And he's one of the owners. So that's impressive, number one. And number two, we don't know how much Ty Dillon is actually learning from AJ Allmendinger, who's now his teammate.
Granted, I'm not going to say it was a killer showing. I'm not going to say it was a downright disappointing showing. He had a respectable showing in Mexico. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Could that translate over to Chicago? I highly doubt it because you're dealing with two completely different animals there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
But
90-degree corners as opposed to, being a dedicated road course.
right. Out of that top half, that top half of that quadrant, Brad should advance.
Should, yeah. But then again, look at what happened in Atlanta, right?
True. Now the bottom part of that quadrant right there with Bowman advancing and Wallace advancing, that could quietly be the sleeper match in this next round. Wallace has gotten much better at road courses. He was okay at Chicago last year. Alex Bowman won Chicago last year.
Right.
So that could be like I said, that could be the sleeper match.
Yeah, could be.
Could be a sleeper match.
It is interesting to think about it. And, you mentioned it. Bubba Wallace has shown an aptitude for having a lot more patience behind the wheel than what he used to have. Used to be he would get very frustrated if any one little thing went wrong. Now he seems to be able to move past it at a much faster scale. So you got to give him a lot of credit there. And like you said, Alex Bowman won this race. And then you go to that Ty Dillon, Brad Keselowski. Again, yeah, I agree with you. I think in the grand scheme of things, Brad should win this. But I think Atlanta showed us that we can't count on anything.
Right. And the if you go to the bottom left-hand part where you got, I think it's John Hunter Nemechek advanced. I think Josh Berry advanced, if I'm not mistaken.
That seems right.
No.
Oh, no.
Nemechek beat Berry. Nemechek was heading up against Berry.
There you go.
He's going against Elliott. I'm going to call that. That's the free pass for Elliott to round 3.
Should be, yes. I agree with that. Eric Jones, on the other hand, versus Ricky Stenhouse.
I've got to say Eric Jones is going to go.
I have a hard time disagreeing with you on that because
I'm going to say Eric Jones is going to go.
What I've seen out of the 47 car and what I've seen out of Ricky Stenhouse Jr. over time, this Chicago does not match his best driving capabilities.
It doesn't.
So
it doesn't.
And Eric Jones has the ability to adapt. I mean, if he can do as well as he's done at a Darlington, which is something that that's a track that you have to adapt to changing, everything changing. Eric Jones has proven that with a couple of wins there. So yeah, I got to give a slight edge to him there if he can stay out of trouble. And of course, that's the big if that we got to deal with everybody. But as we look at it on the surface, that's the way it should be, quote unquote, logically.
The top right hand side,
with Gragson going out.
Gragson's against Priest.
Yeah, that's going to be
that should be Ryan Priest.
Is this the all ex Stewart Haas Racing bracket, by the way?
That's what it seemed like.
Yeah. So Gragson versus Priest. I tend to agree with you. I think Priest should win this. And the only reason I say that is because he's a very, very underrated short track driver. And road course racing and short tracks, they have a lot in common. And what we've seen, as we previously noted, out of the RFK Racing stable. So Hocevar versus Tyler Reddick. Those are two young guns right there.
If Reddick doesn't have a problem, let me put that disclaimer first.
Sure.
If Reddick doesn't have a problem, that should be another free pass round.
Do you think, and I ask this question because I honestly don't know, and I'm not saying that 100%, but do you think Hocevar has been bending the ear of SVG any this year to learn better about road courses?
I'm not going to say necessarily bending the ear of SVG, but more bending the ear of Michael McDowell.
You think he'd go there first?
Being his teammate, yeah.
Okay.
Being under both of them under that Spire banner, I wouldn't be bending his ear. I would be setting his eardrum on fire with a torch.
Okay, because there's a part of me that would kind of think that, and this is no disrespect to Michael McDowell, but I might actually be talking to SVG a little bit more. I mean, especially after what we saw him do at Chicago in his first year there, and then the school that he put on down at Mexico City.
That wasn't a school. That was I don't even know what that was.
Yeah, I mean, that was unreal. That particular performance. So, and again, like I said, I don't mean that as disrespect to Michael McDowell, but right. When you think about what SVG has done Mexico City and then a couple of years ago in the Chicago debut, I'd have a hard time not just sitting down and saying, hey, let's go to lunch, let's go to dinner, whatever, and just start talking his ear off.
Yeah. And then I almost think of SVG real quick. I seen a quote that had from Denny Hamlin that I think it came from Atlanta. That was asking him about SVG and, him winning Mexico and getting in the playoffs. And Denny making the comment of, well, I think it's showing itself right now that he wasn't quite ready for Cup. Time out on that one. Because if you go back and listen to that post race from Mexico City on Prime, he fully admitted that everything he learned last year in Xfinity from seeing the tracks on multiple rotations and multiple rounds,
right,
versus only seeing them here and there in Cup, he fully admitted that everything that he learned in Xfinity, he had to rubbish it and throw it away because he had to adapt to the car full time instead of having to jump between two cars.
Right, because
the car full time.
Yeah, and because now those cars are so vastly different.
Gigantically different. Yeah. But until Ty Gibbs tried to go 3 wide and he clipped him and spun him around on Saturday night, Shane was running top 10 the entire race.
Yeah.
And he was up there holding his ground. He just wrong place, wrong time.
I think in a lot of ways, Mexico City showed SVG what his car is truly capable of. And that is true at all tracks. It doesn't just have to be a road or a street course. He now knows what his car is truly capable of. And now he's going to start to set out to explore those limits.
Yeah. And like I said a few weeks ago, it seems that after the 600, when Ross won the 600, Trackhouse woke up.
Yes.
Because every single car has progressively gained speed race after race after race after race after race. And they've gotten better.
Yeah.
I mean, Connor Zilisch was top 15 all night at Atlanta. First super speedway style test in a Cup car.
Sure.
He held his ground.
Yep.
And if you take away Ross and Daniel getting caught up in that first incident, I could almost bet and guarantee every single Trackhouse car would have been solid top 15.
Yeah, I can't argue that. I can't argue that at all. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to watch. So Atlanta turned out to be an even bigger wild card than you and I thought it was going to be. It's going to be interesting to watch as they go out of Chicago and see who comes out of Chicago.
That was, I would say, for the year so far, compared to the first, if they had to rank races, I'm sorry, but right now Atlanta's sitting 1 and 2 for both their races.
Oh, I agree. Atlanta's turned out to be one of, if not the best races of the entire calendar.
It's something with that reconfiguration with the track versus the super speedway package on these cars. It just something has clicked, and it's an aggressive, constant lead changing, full of action race from green to checker regardless.
Yeah, I agree. And it showed it at the very end too.
Yeah, it did.
All the way up. So congratulations to NASCAR, but fair warning. We've said it before, we'll say it again. Atlanta needs to stand alone. Don't go reconfiguring any other track to look like Atlanta. Let it be there. Yeah.
Don't mess with Kansas. Don't mess with Texas.
No.
Let the others be and have their own identity. Let Atlanta be in a league of its own, being a miniature super speedway.
Sure. And the drivers love Kansas the way that it's configured right now. And
Sure.
I was pleasantly surprised with the race at Texas earlier this year. It turned out to be a better race than what I thought. Was it a great race? Not necessarily, but it was a better race than I thought it was going to be.
It was better, for sure.
So, yeah, this car is adapting to these 1.5 mile tracks, and these drivers have adapted to these 1.5 mile tracks and their different personalities. And that's fantastic, because that's a welcome change from what we used to see. Now, if we could just figure out the short track road course racing,
make it to where you're not riding half throttle as super speedway.
Also true. Well, that's a problem for a different day, and we kind of actually already dealt with that anyway, so I'm not worried about it. All right, let's talk about subject number 2 here, because this goes to Formula One. And you think about what's going on in the world of Formula One. I find it an interesting move here, because earlier on this year, we talked about the Miami Grand Prix. And the Miami Grand Prix went out and signed an extension of their deal, even though they were already set up to go well into the 2030s with Liberty Media hosting that race down there in South Florida. They signed an extension to that deal that has the Miami Grand Prix running through 2041. So if there's anything that we know of the 24 races that Formula One is running, they're going to Miami from now until 2041. But we also know that there's only 24 races. And we know that you've got Indonesia wanting back in. You've got South Africa, which would like back in. You got Rwanda ready to build a grade 1 F1 track. And says if Formula One will work with them, they will begin to build it. The plans are here. If we get the approval, we'll build it, and we'll be on the schedule 3 years, within 3 years, right? You yourself said that there are plans, concrete, pardon the pun, plans for a Barber Motorsports Park, which hosts Indycar, among other series, to go grade 1. And God only knows how many other courses around the planet that either are or have plans to go grade 1 would think about going and trying to host an F1 race in the near future.
Yeah,
so that brings us.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the aforementioned Austrian Grand Prix. Run at the Red Bull Ring in Austria. Does Austria stick on the calendar? Turns out they do. They just signed an extension to their contract with Formula One. That means they will be on the track as long as the Miami Grand Prix. So now we have 2 races guaranteed to go through at least 2041.
Watching that race Sunday morning and looking at how that track sits in the Austrian countryside, I want to go to that racetrack.
It's pretty, no doubt.
That's a very picturesque place.
Yeah. You have this urge to go singing in the hills, like in Sound of Music? Just asking.
Not quite.
Yeah, I understand.
Not quite.
Yeah. But your point is well taken. It is a very, very picturesque track, picturesque place. You of all the places that you could go, that's one of those that you would just go, this would be a pretty place to be. Pretty place to sit and watch a race. Absolutely.
It would. And you spurred that up talking about those concrete plans of Barber and how it was described to me, how that layout would go. That layout would be, it was told to me that layout would have the most, in these words, the most extreme elevation changes in F1, period.
As it sits right now, it's pretty up there on the Indycar schedule when it comes to elevation changes. And then what you told me as far as some of those other changes that they're talking about, I could easily see how that would be a radical change for the guys over at Formula One and a challenge.
It would be massive.
I think it would be a challenge for those guys as well. I mean, we've seen the ability to go side by side in IndyCar and Formula One cars. There are similarities in their size, but they're not exactly copies of each other by any stretch. And it's challenging enough for those guys to find a really good place to be able to pass. And where those passes are set up are currently where fan zones are really well set up. But you mentioned it, one of those fan areas would be altered under these new plans. So it would be interesting to see. But when you think about going back and talking about the Austrian Grand Prix as a whole, and again, with 24 races on the schedule, and now we know that these two tracks, Miami and Austria, are set up for the long haul. This is also a vastly different way of looking at things. Liberty Media, when they bought the commercial rights holdings of F1 away from Bernie Ecclestone, Bernie Ecclestone was a short contract kind of guy. He basically wanted to kind of keep everybody on their toes and seemingly wanted to try and stretch it out as far as he could monetarily. And what I mean by that is, for example, I'll just put him and I in two fictional races. Okay, I'm the host of the Birmingham Grand Prix, and Matt is the host of the Atlanta Grand Prix. And all I can get out of Bernie Ecclestone is a series of 2, maybe 3-year deals at most. And that's because he's playing me against Matt, number one, because we're in relatively close proximity. But number two, he's also wanting to see how much money he can get out of me. He has to come back to me and go, hey, you sold out the last 2 years, your full contract. If you sign this new deal, it's instead of going to be $45 million per year, I'm going to have to jump it up to 50 because I need to make sure I get my cut. And he's going to you and he's saying the same exact thing. Right. Liberty Media seems a little less worried about that. They seem to be taking the basics of what Bernie Ecclestone brought. They're not so worried about trying to get the most money out of the race organizer. They're trying to make sure that the race organizers are willing and able to stick with the series long term. They want the stability of having the race for a long period of time.
Right. That is true. That is true.
So it's two vastly different ways of looking at things from Bernie Ecclestone to Liberty Media. And it's neither one is worse than the other. In some ways, though, I think that the way that Liberty Media is doing it is the better way to do it, because if you're looking for the stability of the series on a long-term basis, you're going to want to have longer-term contracts. Now, 16 years out might seem excessive, but if the race organizers are willing to commit to it, and in the case of Austria, at the very least, the country is willing to back it as well, because we know that's part of their situation. Who's going to complain that much?
And plus, with it being the Red Bull ring, Red Bull throwing their money in it too.
Exactly. So there's stability there.
Yeah, there's a ton of stability there. It's you got nothing to lose.
No, not at all.
That's one of the more stable facilities that there is.
So I think that's the next hurdle that we're going to see everybody trying to jump over, or at least match, is going through that contract situation and see how long these contract extensions are going to be. And again, these are a couple of tracks that weren't in any danger. They weren't in their last years of their current F1 deals. So it's not like they were desperate and going, well, we'll just put 2041 on it. No, they sat down and they legitimately thought it out and said, yeah, we're good until 2041. Bring it.
It said quite a bit to me too, because Sky Sports, they did show an image of Mark Mateschitz, Dietrich Mateschitz' son, the founder of Red Bull. He was there at the race.
Correct.
Being the title sponsor, being, of course, the team, plus being the title sponsor of the track. So that shows that they're stable and they're invested in that facility.
Yeah. So what we're seeing from this year to next year is that Italy, which has 2 races this year, is going down to 1 next year. Spain, which has 1 this year, is going up to 2 next year, but that's a 1-year only deal because Barcelona is about to drop off the schedule, as you noted on the air a couple of weeks ago. Can't remember exactly which show it was, but it was a couple of weeks ago. You mentioned that Barcelona has fallen actually into grade 2 category. So that's one of the reasons why. Catalunya. That's the reason it's going away. Part of the reasons, anyway. May it return? I don't know. I did find out, and I'll detail that more this weekend, that the practice schedule for the early part of 2026 does include the Catalunya course, but there's a caveat there. And again, I'll fill that in on Saturday morning. But since we know that that's going to happen, that does open up 1 weekend starting 2027. So now it becomes the question of exactly who's going to fill in now that new opening. Kyle Lama in South Africa seems to be ready and prepared. I don't know as you can actually finalize the plans for the Rwandan track. As you noticed, noted, Indonesia's still there and still listed. They have listed a grade 1 facility, although oddly enough, it doesn't seem like that's the course that Indonesian officials are actually talking about.
Right.
So it will be interesting to watch and see who fills that hole that the Catalunya circuit will leave after the 2026 season. But that's next year. We'll worry about next year then. But it does also bring up this other question. And you might have missed it, truth be told, because I have to admit, I had to look back and realize that we did talk about it momentarily, but we didn't really talk about the whole ramifications of it. Toyota Racing Development, Toyota Gazoo Racing, whichever version of this you want to put it out there. This is their final year officially of racing in the NHRA. Now, a couple of teams have said that they're going to continue to use the Toyota body into 2026 without factory support because they're not really prepared yet to find another car maker. But Toyota's last year, and then you think about how the effort that they've put in since, 2002, 4, whatever it was?
Something like that, yeah.
In the NHRA, now all of a sudden has the opportunity to go elsewhere. And you think about a couple of things that they have just recently done. They've hooked up with Haas F1 in Formula One. And we didn't really know what that ultimately could mean. But now all of a sudden with this move and that move, it suddenly pops some eyeballs open. But they also just signed on as a founding partner of the Arlington Grand Prix, which comes on board Indycar next year. And they said, we're doing that mainly because we want to bring our own Toyota GR series there, which is, Supras and nothing but Supras.
And it looked to me like that track would fit those cars pretty well.
I can agree with that. But my question would be this. How hard would it be for them to turn around and start up an IndyCar engine program and battle with Honda?
I don't think it'd be very hard. Don't think it would be very hard at all, because because they've got, there's a blueprint there.
Sure.
The blueprint is there to build the IndyCar engine to specs, because every manufacturer, all 2 of them, Chevrolet and Honda, they've got the same blueprint for the geometry of the specs of what each piece of the engine has to be. Mm-hmm. It's just what they put into their technology of it.
Right.
Toyota's got the resources to be able to put just as good as, if not better technology than Chevrolet or Honda.
And as you and I have noted, there's not a whole lot of difference between what IndyCar runs engine-wise and what Formula One runs.
It's not much. It's not much. IndyCar is 2.4. F1 is 1.6.
Yeah, and here's probably even the more important side of it for me. is that unlike their first time where they tried to get into Formula One, they tried to go in whole hog. They were trying to do a works program with an engine program, everything under the sun. It was going to be an in-house race car with an in-house race engine. And that's a lot to ask. Just ask Cadillac.
Right.
Okay. Now they don't have to worry about all that. All they have to do, if they decide to get into Formula One, is to say, we've got this partnership with Haas. And how hard would it be for Haas to sit there and say, we've got Toyota all to ourselves? Why wouldn't we take that deal? Despite the fact that they've had such a great relationship with Ferrari, at some point in time, they're either going to have to go whole hog in with Ferrari, or they're going to have to figure out what they're going to ultimately be. And how hard would it be for them to go Toyota if that's what they chose to do?
I don't think it would be very hard. Honestly, I don't think it would be.
So this is a lot of speculation. Understand this. We don't generally play around a whole lot with speculation. But I find it hard to believe that Toyota, whether it's Toyota Racing Development, Toyota Gazoo, whatever they want to call themselves now, they can call themselves whatever they want for as long as they want.
Right.
I find it hard to believe that they're going to back out of a commitment like an NHRA and not find another place to put that money. I find it very difficult to believe that.
I agree.
So that's why we're going down this road. The connection for me is a lot more tenuous in IndyCar. I mean, they signed on as a foundational partner of the Arlington GP because they wanted to make sure that one of their series gets on the undercard as a support series that will race on that same weekend as the Arlington Grand Prix. So that is a little more tenuous as opposed to the direct partnership that they have now with Haas F1. But at the same time, what's more expensive, or more importantly, what's a little bit cheaper and a little bit more appetizing when it comes to the bottom line to go ahead and start getting your feet wet in that particular series? We've talked about the difference between IndyCar and Formula One when it comes to costs. It's the same for the engine makers too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, it is. I don't know.
While you're thinking about that, I'm going to reach for something and grab it. So,
go ahead. Cheaper would be IndyCar.
Yeah, it wouldn't be that hard. Wouldn't be that hard to take that money dedicated to the NHRA and just turn it over whole hog to IndyCar. There'd be more investment into Formula One. There's no doubt about it. I agree.
Yeah.
But
it would be cheaper in IndyCar because the teams that you're putting the factory backing behind, the ones that stick out the biggest, Steve Torrance,
mm-hmm.
Ron Capps,
right,
Antron Brown, all the Coletta cars.
Coletta, by the way, is the team that says they're going to stick with running Toyotas next year, despite not having factory support.
Now, Ron Capps runs Toyotas too. So
mm-hmm.
Is he going to stick with his Toyota body, or is he going somewhere else? That's the question mark.
Yeah, Chevrolet, Ford, and Dodge are suddenly out there going, who can we get?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Justin Ashley runs Toyota and Top Fuel too.
Yeah. So there's a lot out there.
There's quite a bit.
Yeah, there's a lot out there. It'll be a feeding frenzy in the NHRA, and it's going to be very interesting to watch and see what happens with Toyota and what they do with the resources that we're going towards the NHRA and where they're going to go beginning next year. It's going to be real interesting. And we deal with July 4th week, and in my regular business, that means that a lot of people go on vacation. And the morning show that I deal with on a Monday through Friday basis, Richard was out this morning. So wonderful lady who helped my wife and I with our will, Brooks Burdett, came in and she co-hosted. And she knows my affinity for racing and NASCAR specifically. And she was very kind to bring me this little gift. I'm going to put it real close so that Matt can see exactly what that is.
I've got that exact thing.
That goes back to that famed Dale Earnhardt finally winning the Daytona 500 because let's face it, those aren't all his crew members right there, boys and girls. I was very touched, very happy to see that. And the fact that she was willing to give that up, because there's probably a few Dale Earnhardt fans out there that would be willing to pay a pretty good penny for something like that in the box. My thanks to Brooks. I appreciate it very, very much. That was a very kind, very thoughtful, big time gift. I can't say thanks to her enough. So
good stuff.
Yeah. All right. With that noted, on behalf of producer Molly and producer John, Matt, first things first, we wish you safe travels.
Thank you.
And second things, when you get back, you pretty much turn around and you're going to go under the knife. And I'm, if you're okay with it, I'm going to say where.
It's fine. No, I have no problem.
It's at Grandview Hospital here in Birmingham. He's got some work to do to his throat area, which was detailed some on the big show last Saturday. So pray for him for safe travels and a safe return. Pray for him as he goes under surgery. And as soon as I get an update, I'll be more than happy to pass it along. And in the meantime, it looks like I get to be a solo host for a little while. No pressure to me, right? Get back as soon as you can, man. Safe travels. Have a great time in the Caribbean, and we'll certainly be praying for you, and I'll come over. I'll see you before you get discharged, I hope, and see how you're doing over there, okay?
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. All the best to you in the travels and the surgery. And again, thanks to Molly and thanks to John for setting everything up and getting us put up onto both CRN Live and to the fine folks over at Jocks FM. Have a great week. We'll talk to you Saturday on The Big Show. Don't forget about it. 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central Time, CRN Live on YouTube. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you on Saturday.
You've been listening to Crossed Flags, a racing podcast. For more content like this, subscribe to CRN Live on YouTube, and you'll be set to catch the 2-hour live show every Saturday morning at 9 Eastern, 8 Central.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.